Welcome to the Deep Dive. Ready to go beyond the surface again. Today we're diving into the Anurag Sagar, a fascinating text filled with the teachings of Kabir.
Kabir, yeah, a true mystic. 15th century India.
Exactly. And what's so cool about this text is how it speaks directly to you, the reader. So today, let's explore these ideas together, like Kabir himself is part of our conversation.
Makes it so personal, that direct approach. You really feel like he's speaking right to you.
Absolutely. So one of the first things that jumps out is this idea of Dein, Sitz, right? It means your seat.
Your seat, powerful image.
It is. And Kabir places this seat above all. And I mean everything. Gods, Brahma, yogis, even his own brother. So how do we understand such a bold statement?
It's bold for sure. But remember, Kabir's not talking about some literal throne here. This Dein Sitz, it's a metaphor.
Okay, so then what does it point to?
Something beyond our usual reality. Think of it as a state of being, a level of awareness beyond your individual self, your experiences, even your name.
You mean like there's a part of you that's connected to something much, much bigger?
Exactly. Something almighty, as the text says. And that's where the real power lies, tapping into that almighty self.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get it. But then it gets even more interesting because Kabir brings in this divine son who also occupies this above all seat.
Right. And hold on, because here comes the real head scratcher. He then tells us this son is also, wait for it, nothing.
Wait, what? How can someone be both divine and nothing?
That's the paradox, right? And mystics like Kabir, they love to use this kind of language.
Why is that? Just to keep us on our toes?
Kind of. They're trying to stretch us beyond logic, Help us grasp those truths that are hard to put into words.
So how do we even begin to unravel this divine son thing?
What if we look at this son not as a separate being, but as a symbol? A powerful one.
A symbol of what?
Imagine it representing that spark of the divine in all of creation within us. It's not about God being out there and us down here. It's more like the divine is woven into everything. Remember that phrase, nothing means everything?
Wow, yeah. That's a complete mind flip.
It is, and it's a good example of how Kabir challenges us to rethink everything we thought we knew.
So we're not just talking about hierarchy here, but this interconnectedness, right, with the divine at the very center. This is where the term mystical starts to make sense. But if we're all connected like this, how do we actually tap into it? How do we live from that Dein Sitz?
Good question. And Kabir seems to suggest it's not about waiting around hoping for a sign,
More like an active process.
Exactly. Aligning our actions with a higher purpose. And that's where his teachings on discipleship and divine grace come in. He talks about those who are initiated being given tasks by a divine master.
Tasks? Like what?
He doesn't give specifics, really, but the key is that these tasks have to be done selflessly so they can bear fruit.
It's like a spiritual to-do list, but not in the usual sense. These tasks are more about cultivating something deeper.
Absolutely. And notice that word, selflessness. That's crucial for Kabir. It's about giving up your ego, your own desires, acting in accordance with a higher will.
So not blind obedience then, but aligning our actions with something greater.
Yes. You see this idea of true service in a lot of spiritual traditions.
So aligning with that higher purpose is how we grow spiritually.
You got it. That's the path to real understanding. But of course, Kabir being Kabir, he adds another layer to it, introducing this concept of a dualistic universe.
Right, with those two opposing forces, Brahm and the negative force. And here's where it gets even trickier, because he says they both come from the same God.
Like two sides of the same coin, you can't have one without the other.
So it's not about good versus evil, as we usually think of it.
Nope, it's more nuanced than that. Kabir's saying both forces are essential for creation itself.
Even figures like Satan.
Even Satan, he turns everything on its head.
So this negative force isn't something to be feared or destroyed then?
Not according to Kabir. It's an essential player in the cosmic dance. Just like water can be liquid or ice, same element, different forms.
Okay, so that's a very different way of looking at things. But how does this all tie back to us, to what we were talking about before?
Well, this is where Kabir's concept of gemut comes in.
Gemut, right. Usually translated as mind.
Exactly. But it's more than just thoughts, It's feelings, intuition, that deep inner knowing we all have. And Kabir says this is where the real battle takes place.
Not out in the world, but inside each of us.
That's where the real revolution happens.
Is that what he means by Kali Yuga and Golden Age then?
You got it. It's not about some epic event in the future, but something happening within each of us.
So even when the world feels chaotic, there's always this potential for individual growth.
A personal golden age. It's a powerful message.
It is. But if the battle is internal, how do we fight it? What are the weapons, so to speak?
Remember those divinely appointed tasks we were discussing? It's about conscious action, making choices that align with that higher purpose, true service.
So it's not enough just to do good deeds. Our motivation matters too.
Exactly. It's about tapping into that selfless service within. That's when we start to align with the positive force.
So we're not just improving ourselves, but actually contributing to a larger shift.
That's the idea. Kabir was all about this interconnectedness between our inner world and the outer world. And this leads us to another fascinating concept, the science of the soul.
Okay, yes, the science of the soul. Now we're getting to the really mysterious stuff. He calls it God's work and ties it to reincarnation.
He's saying our souls are on this incredible journey, constantly evolving, shaped by those positive and negative forces we talked about.
It's a lot to wrap your head around. I have to admit, I'm finding myself wondering what happens when we graduate, so to speak. When we're done with this science of the soul, what then?
Classic Kabir, right. He leaves it open to interpretation. But the point is, even contemplating this idea can change us.
If we're part of something so much bigger than ourselves.
It makes you rethink everything, doesn't it? Life, death, the purpose of it all.
It does. But this science of the soul is still pretty abstract. Can we break it down a bit, make it more relevant to everyday life?
Absolutely. One of the most practical things Kabir talks about is mindfulness.
Okay, mindfulness. Everyone's talking about that these days.
For good reason. And I don't just mean meditation, although that's part of it. I'm talking about bringing awareness to every aspect of your life.
Oh, paying attention, basically.
Being present to your thoughts, your words, your actions, not living on autopilot.
Choosing our responses instead of just reacting.
Exactly. And remember, Kabir wasn't about blind faith. He wanted us to experience these truths for ourselves.
So by being mindful, we become our own laboratory, our own experiment.
Exactly. That's when the real science of the soul unfolds, through direct experience.
But how do we cultivate that kind of mindfulness in our busy lives?
One of the simplest practices Kabir talks about is conscious breathing.
Breathing. Seriously.
It sounds simple, but it's powerful. He saw the breath as this bridge between the physical and the spiritual.
I can see that. I find myself taking deep breaths when I'm stressed or overwhelmed. It's like my body knows what to do.
It's like a direct line to your inner calm. And the best part is, it's always there for you. Anytime, anywhere.
It really is amazing when you think about it, how something so simple can be so powerful. But it works. So we've covered so much ground in this deep dive: the divine throne, the science of the soul, selfless service, the power of the breath. It's a lot to take in. What would you say is the most important thing for our listeners to remember from Kabir's teachings? If they only take away one thing from this whole conversation, what should it be?
That's a tough one. There's so much richness in Kabir's words, but for me, it always comes back to his message of inclusivity, of direct experience. He didn't want to put spirituality in a box, you know?
He wanted to break down the walls.
Exactly. He was like, look, the divine is within you, within everyone. You don't need a middleman or a special book or anything. You have everything you need right here, right now.
He was a true spiritual rebel, questioning everything, challenging the norms.
He sure was. Remember, he was born Muslim, but later became a disciple of a Hindu guru. His teachings, they went beyond any one religion. He showed us that the divine doesn't discriminate, doesn't care about your background, your beliefs, or your past mistakes.
It's a message we need to hear, especially these days, right? When the world feels so divided.
Absolutely. Kabir reminds us that no matter our differences, there's this common thread that connects us all, that spark of the divine within each of us.
So beautifully said. And that's why his teachings still resonate so deeply today, even after all these centuries. They offer a path forward, a way to navigate this complex life, find some inner peace, and recognize that divine spark in ourselves and everyone around us.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of Kabir, let's leave you with this question to ponder. If, as Kabir suggests, we are all expressions of the divine, both nothing and everything at the same time, what potential does that unlock within us as we journey through this world? Take that question with you, let it sit with you, explore it, and until next time, keep diving deep, everyone.